God, where to even begin? I guess a lot of the stuff that I've been seeing in the news recently and just what's been going on X, but I think we'll jump into. I think I'd like to critique conservatives in general, especially on the heels of the nationalist women episode, but that has some strings tied to just conservatives in general. Because I was wondering, like what exactly has the conservative movement conserved in the last 50 years or so? Because when you're looking around and you're trying to find one thing, just literally one cultural victory that conservatives managed to actually, hold the line on, what do you see? Because all I see is like a trail of, right, surrendered policies, surrendered cultural norms. Honestly, that's all you see from conservatives. Dude, the Overton shift alone has been so massive to the left. This is why I said there is hardly any conservatives that are truly conservative left. They're really liberal. So the lines keep getting redrawn in the sand, right? They keep moving left until we ended up in a reality where, and I hate to say it, but children are getting chemically castrated. Men are chopping their dicks off and they're calling this shit healthcare for us. Women cutting off their breasts in the name of what? Gender identity? And then the conservatives this entire time are just standing there and saying, well, at least we're just not as bad as the Democrats, while the entire civilization around us is collapsing. Like, bro, what? What are we doing here? I don't understand. I really don't. Yeah. But in general, though, conservatives today, I would consider them leftist of the 90s, right? And that's not being hyperbolic at all. That's just looking at where things kind of shifted, right? The conservatives you see on TV and they're talking about family values and limited government and all this shit, they're basically like Bill Clinton Democrats at this point. You have to admit that. We haven't had a real conservative movement, I think, probably in decades. What we have truly is controlled opposition. That's kind of fucked up to say, but controlled opposition that's all there is to it. Think about it. These are managers. They're managing how fast we decline. These conservatives, they don't stop it, right? Just in a sense, slowing down the degeneracy. And they make it's like they make it so that you feel like you have a choice while everything is going to shit anyway. And look at what we've accepted along the way. So conservatives have essentially surrendered on every single major cultural battle for the last half century. Accepted no-fault divorce, and now what happened? Well, marriage is in the gutter with 50% failure rates. We accepted feminism, and now women are miserable and childless, and men don't commit because the deal is so bad. We accepted the sexual revolution, and now families are completely destroyed, shattered. We accepted mass immigration, for example, and our communities became unrecognizable, just like mine did. Right? We accepted the welfare state, and now, especially with the EBT zombies, we have a generational dependency, and it's collapsing cities everywhere. So, at every single step, conservatives have said, well, we have to compromise. We have to meet them halfway. We have to show that we're somehow reasonable. And the left never compromised, not once. They just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. Think about it. What did all this compromising do? What did we get for all this? I'll read the super chats in a little bit. Yeah. So for all this compromise, for example, we probably got what? Broken homes for sure, right? Disgusting cities. You could say they look like third world shitholes filled with human feces on the sidewalks and tent cities everywhere you look. Okay, what else? Criminals being let out of prison on no bail policies to reoffend and kill innocent people because we have some progressive DA that just decided that, holding people accountable for crime is racist, and conservatives just like shrug that shit for decades. Well, what can we do? Instead of fighting back with everything they have. Instead of saying no. Instead of drawing a line and actually holding it for once. So marriage is destroyed. What else? People aren't having kids. And when they want to have kids, they can't afford to have kids because cost of living has skyrocketed. And wages are stagnant. You got an entire, and I mean an entire generation, guys, that's been priced out of being able to build a family. And this isn't some accident. This is by design because stressed animals don't reproduce. We figured that out with the mouse utopia experiment. When you create economic conditions where people are so stressed and so fucking broke and anxious that they can't even think about having children, you've effectively sterilized a generation without anybody noticing. And conservatives, yet again, did nothing to stop it, bro. They wrecked the family structure under the guise of what? Progress and liberation and equality. And conservatives went along with it every single time because they were too afraid of being called mean or backwards or oppressive. So now broken families are everywhere, right? Broken communities everywhere, broken institutions everywhere. And conservatives are still playing nice by the same losing playbook that got us here in the fucking first place, right? Our kids are falling behind in school. They can't fucking read or write at grade level because the education system got captured by the ideologues who care more about pushing gender theory and critical race theory and all this other bullshit than teaching basic literacy. Parents are finding out that their children are being transitioned behind their backs. That's crazy. That schools are hiding information from them. That teachers are grooming kids into these ideologies. And what did conservatives do? Some of them, they showed up to a school board, and what happened? They went to those meetings, they got arrested for being too loud, while policies didn't change regardless, while nothing changes, you could say, and it just keeps getting worse, dude. Our institution, and where was the riots, by the way? Huh? Where was the conservative versions of, the summer of love? Don't think it happened. So our institutions, we know they're completely corrupt and totally broken. They don't work for the American people anymore. They work for the donor class and the special interest and the corporations that own both parties. You got unelected bureaucrats making decisions that affect millions of lives. Federal agencies that are getting weaponized against anyone that they don't like. A justice system that prosecutes conservatives for bullshit, absolute bullshit, while letting Democrats off for actual crimes. And conservatives just accepted this for decades because why? Because we must what? What do they say? We must trust the institutions, you guys. We have to respect the institutions. Come on, dude. Even as those institutions completely and are actively trying to destroy them, yes, that makes perfect sense. Though the same institutions that they've weaponized against you, literally using them as weapons. That's crazy to me. Yeah, respecting the institution that institutes your downfall. That's a good one. Let me play some supers, actually. Of the people, by the people, for the corporations. Yeah, it's true. I agree with your video that we were watching the Hodge twins about Anglo-Saxon culture. It needs to come back. Yeah, we can get into that one later too. So not culture. Cultures are not all equal, and that's what we have to understand. That's just the brutal truth. And people, the left, we got gaslit into not believing that. We were supposed to accept everybody as they are, but the people that are coming here don't accept us. So it's like inviting the fox into the hen house, essentially. And the institutions made this happen. Like, that's what's crazy, right? They were weaponized. They're weapons against regular Americans, dude. That's what's crazy about this. Nothing works in this country anymore. The streets look like shit, dude. The infrastructure is old, right? The fucking, everything looks dated and crumbling. There's homeless encampments everywhere. They've taken over major cities. You can't walk through San Francisco or Los Angeles or Portland without stepping over fucking needles and human waste. And this is in America, no less. This is the richest country in human history, most likely. Yet our cities look worse than some developing nations because what? The people running them care more about virtue signaling than basic governance? More about fucking pronouns and public safety than public safety, you could say? Climate change than crime? Like, what else does the left fight for? So where's the progressive utopia that we were promised? That's what everybody here is wondering. Where's the equality and prosperity and enlightenment that was supposed to come from all these social experiments. Where are they at? Because all I see is decay. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Decay and dysfunction and despair. And conservatives went along with every single one of these concessions. Every single one. They compromised on every single one. They surrendered until we arrived at this point where trillions in debt. We are trillions in debt, you guys, under conservative government. Drowning in a cost of living crisis.
Squat enthusiast $9.99. 19-year-old plumbing apprentice and getting married in 2 months. Doing plumbing to have a steady career for my family, although is it even worth having kids in 2025?
Absolutely.
Don't mean to be a doomer.
Absolutely. Don't doom yourself out of one of the most pinnacle human experiences that you could ever have is having children. Absolutely not. Look, I understand it, right? Yes, we're in a cost of living crisis. I get it. You're scared. You're watching what looks like civilization imploding in real time, And the people who are supposed to be conserving all this shit for us are just managing the decline, essentially, right? Just making sure it happens slow enough that you don't really revolt. That's what they're doing. And, while all of this is going on, essentially, right in front of us, they don't give a shit. They're out here making millions of dollars. They're fucking insider trading. The rules don't apply to them. They live in like a completely different world. That's what makes this shit insane. So I understand why everybody feels, what could you say, uneasy about the future when our own leaders are literally pillaging and looting the empire and preparing with bunkers and shit while it's all going to crash. So, because think about Nancy Pelosi, for example. They're making millions of dollars on insider trading. Literally using information that's illegal for ordinary citizens to trade on. Dude, that's what's fucking crazy. But for them, it's perfectly fine because they wrote the rules and they're exempted. They exempted themselves. They're getting rich while Americans are struggling to afford fucking groceries and rent. And what did conservatives do? Conservatives don't do anything because half of them are doing the same thing, dude. They're all the same. They're on the same gravy train. They're all part of the same corrupt system. And it exists to extract wealth from the middle class and transfer it upward to all the elites. You're on your own, dude. That's it. We got betrayed by both parties. That's the brutal truth that, people need to accept this shit. The Republican establishment isn't actually fighting for you. They're controlled opposition. They're just there to give you the illusion of choice while the same policies continue, regardless of who's in power. So you get tax cuts for corporations and military interventions overseas and mass immigration and cultural decay. And it doesn't matter if you vote red or blue because the trajectory stays the same, just at a slightly different speed, just with different rhetoric to make you think that something's changing when nothing's changing, bro. There are no conservatives in a real sense. There are no people in power who actually want to conserve anything. They're just empty suits with price tags. And whoever pays the most gets to dictate policy. Conservative politicians supporting fucking shit like mass immigration. Do you remember that? Because their donors wanted cheap labor. Conservative politicians supporting endless wars. Only Trump barely just stopped mass immigration. The Repubs were cool with it.
At me
Who
third
sold
$5
us out along
got
the way?
here 29 minutes late, but I doubt most men of happy wife, happy life philosophy is the tell sign of a weak man. So I must say, no spine for most men, black exclamation mark emoji.
Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, that's cringe. Let me pause these. We'll get to some of these at the end. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Trump was the only one that stopped the porous border. But even then, there's other things that conservatives have done that basically aligns with the liberals and the Democrats. It's just that, at least it used to be, right? Like defense contractors would fund their campaigns. That was a very, conservative thing. And then conservative politicians also on top of folding on shit like this would fold on every cultural issue because, for example, big tech and corporate America threaten to pull funding if they don't comply. But now somehow that switched. Democrats became the party of big business and shit. But it's all a game, bro. It's just theater. Have you not noticed? It's all just theater, if you haven't noticed by now. And it's gotten so bad, dude. And I mean so bad that younger generations, think about this. They're now, this shit shocked me reading this. Younger generations are now outpacing their parents in church attendance. Think about what that means for a second. Religious participation always declines with like each generation. Societies are becoming more liberal and secular all the time. That's just how it goes. But we've gotten so degenerate, so broken, so spiritually empty that young people are desperately searching for fucking meaning and structure and tradition in a way that their parents never did. Doesn't that sound crazy to you? They're flocking to churches and traditional practice because they've seen what the progressive utopia, this secular utopia, actually delivers, which is depression and anxiety and purposelessness and emptiness, dude. Young men are sick of it, especially. Never in modern history has this happened. But it's happening now because an entire generation grew up in the wreckage of this progressive social engineering, and they're rejecting it. They're looking for something real, something transcendent, something that actually provides some fucking meaning beyond the consumerism, the hedonism, and the self-destruction. And that should tell you everything about how badly conservatives failed to conserve the culture. It got so bad that the natural, generational rebellion is literally kids becoming more religious than their parents instead of less because their parents gave them nothing because conservatives conserved nothing, bro. Think about, and I'm not saying this from a place of defeat or disillusionment either. I'm saying this from like a place of anger, right? Anger at what was taken from us. Conservatives literally had every fucking opportunity to hold the line, to fight back, to actually conserve the things worth conserving. Instead, they surrendered at every single turn. Every turn, dude. Surrendered at every turn. Compromised on everything. They let the left set the terms on every fucking debate, and then they complained when they lost. Think about this. And what do we have to do? What do we have to show for it? What did all this compromise buy us except civilizational collapse? Think about this shit. Civilizational collapse. Okay? Our civilization in collapse. Look all around you. It's not a... Have you seen the cities? Have you walked the streets? Have you seen the amount of people on there? Why didn't we preserve families that stayed together? Communities that were cohesive, institutions that functioned, a culture worth preserving. It was all traded away piece by fucking piece by conservative leaders who were too weak or too corrupt or too fucking cowardly to actually fight for it. They drew lines in the sand and then erased the fucking lines and then redrew new ones further back every single time the left pushed. And now we are here. Look at where we are. Standing in the ruins, wondering how the fuck this got so bad. And the answer is staring us right in the face, dude. And the only way out of this is to stop voting for people who are owned. Stop voting for politicians who take money from special interests. You know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. And foreign lobbies and billionaires who don't give a shit about you or your family or your future, because every single one of these politicians is bought and paid for by someone. And it's never you. It's never regular Americans. It's always someone else pulling all the strings for these fucking policies that dictate our lives. We need to vote for people who refuse to take the money, who refuse to be owned by foreign policies, literally, who refuse to be tied to billionaires and all the special interest, and who only talk about issues that Americans are actually dealing with. Not some fucking donor who wants them to, whatever it is that they want them to talk about. Miriam Adelson, $100 million. Trump is basically her lapdog. She visits the White House more than official heads of state, than people in our own government. Why? Why do we accept this? We're sick of that shit. We don't want any foreign governments. We want them to prioritize just American issues. Just American problems with only American solutions, man. Is that so fucking hard to... I'm sick of hearing about Israel. I'm sick of hearing about the Middle East. I'm sick of hearing about fucking Ukraine. I'm sick of hearing about any of that bullshit when our own cities are falling apart, when our own people can't afford to live, when our own kids are being sterilized and fucking groomed and indoctrinated, when our own communities are being destroyed by mass immigration and crime and dysfunction, and these politicians want to talk about sending billions overseas while Americans are drowning? Dude, America first, America only, America period. And anyone who won't commit to that, anyone who wants to talk about foreign policy before domestic policy, anyone who's more concerned with what's happening in fucking Tel Aviv or Kiev instead of what's happening in places like Detroit, Baltimore, or your town, wherever it is that you're listening from, they need to be voted out. They need to be primaried. They need to be replaced with people who actually give a fucking shit about this country and the people that live in it, bro. That's it. That's what I'm saying. And until we have politicians who refuse to be bought, who refuse foreign money, refuse the special interest money, who stand up and say, I only work for Americans and I only care about American problems, we're going to keep getting the same managed decline, the same fucking betrayal, the same surrender, and conservatives will keep asking what they conserved while standing in the rubble of everything they failed to protect. And you want to know why I'm so disgusted? Especially what disgusts me most, and with this country specifically, I'll be completely honest. I don't even know if I should be sharing this shit, but I'm sitting here in Croatia right now with my wife after retiring my parents early in Romania. And it makes me fucking sick that this is even necessary, that I had to make this decision, that I'm even in this position in the first place. Okay? I send my parents $2,000 a month. And the $2,000 a month I send them would literally starve them to death in America. That's not hyperbole, okay? That's just reality. $2,000 a month, and they'd be choosing between rent and food in the country that they worked their entire lives in, the country they pay taxes in, the community they actually helped build, and now they can't afford to live there. This was a fucking cost of living decision. I wasn't going to sit there and watch my old man burn what little he had left in his body doing hard-ass construction, working at his old age. I wasn't going to let that happen. So I moved them to Romania, where that $2,000 a month lets them live without worry. No stress, without breaking their bodies just to exist. And it makes me fucking sick because I never wanted to leave America. I never wanted this. I miss it every single day that I'm gone. And with all her problems, America is home for me. Fuck everywhere else. But she treats normal people like absolute shit. Because the people in charge are treasonous pieces of shit who sold all of us out for their own enrichment. Do you understand? That's why there's so much anger. That's why people are furious in general. Because it shouldn't have to come to this. None of this should have been necessary. And how the fuck can I be making more money than my dad ever would have dreamed of in his entire life, and I'm still struggling to get ahead? Still feeling like I'm barely keeping up. Literally watching the ladder get pulled up faster the faster I climb. How does this make any sense? How is it possible that someone in my generation can out-earn their parents by multiples and still feel like they're never going to catch up? Feel like home ownership is out of reach, starting a family financially impossible? Most of us are like one bad month away that could destroy everything that we've worked for, everything we've worked to build. That's the reality for everyone right now. That's what this system has created. A situation where you can do everything right, work your ass off, make good money, play by all the rules, and you're still fucked because the cost of everything has exploded while wages stayed flat. And the elites keep telling you that the economy is great while you're drowning, man. And the fact that I had to move my parents out of America just so that they could afford to live, the fact that I'm sitting here thousands of miles away from home because staying would have meant watching my father work himself to death. That's not a personal failure. That's a system failure. That's a betrayal by every politician who's been in power the last 50 fucking years who let this happen. So when I talk about rage, when I talk about what was taken from us, this is what I mean. This is the reality that millions of Americans are living right now, where you can't afford to take care of your own family in your own country, where leaving becomes the only rational choice, even though you love America and you never wanted to go. And it makes me fucking sick. How many more were forced to do the same? How many more don't even have this kind of reprieve in the first place? And it should make you furious too, because this didn't happen by accident. This was done to us by people who don't give a shit about normal Americans. And I'm so fucking sick of watching this country get sold out piece by piece while conservatives play nice and follow the rules and only apply them while the other side does whatever the fuck they want. And they win every single time because they're willing to fight. And conservatives are too busy worrying about being called names to actually stand up for anything worth fucking preserving. Fucking jail all of them. Stop letting them impede ICE. Throw every single Antifa piece of shit in prison. Lock the keys. Utterly and totally destroy every single NGO that does nothing but steal American money and use that money to destroy America. Fuck all these people. I rest my case before I get too heated.